Have you ever felt that the people around you don't value you enough? That despite everything you give, you remain invisible to those who matter most? You're not alone in this feeling. Today, we're going to explore a topic that has touched many of us at some point in our lives: how to make others truly value us. But we're not going to talk about superficial tricks or manipulative techniques. We're going to dive into the profound wisdom of one of the most revolutionary thinkers of the 20th century, Carl Gustav Jung, the father of analytical psychology. Jung understood something fundamental about human value that many of us take years to discover. True value doesn't begin in the eyes of others, but in the relationship we have with ourselves. And it's precisely this truth that we'll explore today through 11 powerful phrases that transform my life and can transform yours too. Before we begin, I want you to know that this isn't just another video. What I'll share today aren't simple words. They're keys that can open doors you might not even know existed within you. So get ready, because this journey towards self-knowledge could be the beginning of a new way of relating to yourself and the world. The first Jung phrase I want to share with you today is perhaps one of the most powerful for understanding why we sometimes don't receive the value we deserve. What you deny submits you. What you accept transforms you. Think about it for a moment. How many times have you denied parts of yourself because you thought they wouldn't be accepted by others? Maybe you hid your sensitivity, suppressed your creativity, or silenced your opinions for fear of rejection. Jung teaches us that every time we deny a part of ourselves, we not only hide it from the world, but give it power over our lives. When you accept all your facets, even those that have made you feel shame or discomfort, you begin to project an image of authenticity that is magnetic. People can feel when someone is genuine, when they're not trying to fit into a mold that doesn't belong to them. And that authenticity is the first step to being truly valued. I invite you to reflect. What aspects of yourself have you been denying? What parts of your personality have you kept in the shadows for fear of not being accepted? Recognizing them is the first step toward liberation. The second phrase I want to share with you is, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This phrase contains a profound truth about our relationships. Often, we repeat painful patterns without understanding why. We surround ourselves with people who don't value us, enter relationships where we give much more than we receive, and then wonder why we always end up in the same place. Jung suggested that these patterns aren't coincidence or bad luck. They're manifestations of our unconscious, of deeply rooted beliefs about what we do or don't deserve. And until we make these beliefs conscious, we'll continue to attract situations that confirm them. If you constantly attract people who don't value your time, your efforts, or your feelings, it's possible that on some unconscious level, you believe you don't deserve to be valued. This is a painful thought, I know, but recognizing it is the first step to changing it. The third phrase takes us deeper into this journey. The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Jung understood that our relationships aren't simple social exchanges. They're spaces of transformation. Each person we interact with has the potential to change us, and we have the potential to change them. But for this transformation to occur, both parties must be open and present. If you constantly find yourself in one-way relationships, where you're always the one who gives, always understands, always forgives, without receiving the same in return, you're participating in an unbalanced exchange. And no real transformation can occur in such an imbalance. Valuing yourself means recognizing that you deserve relationships where you can both give and receive, where both parties are willing to be transformed by the encounter. The fourth Jung phrase challenges us to look beyond appearances. The persona is a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society, designed to adjust each individual to his environment. In our society, it's easy to fall into the trap of constructing a persona, a social mask, designed to please others. We become what we think others want us to be: the always available employee, the friend who never says no, the partner who swallows their needs to avoid conflict. But Jung warns us that this mask, though it may seem useful in the short term, eventually disconnects us from our true essence. And the most ironic thing is that, in trying to be what others want us to be in order to be valued, we lose the authenticity that would make us truly valuable. Being valued doesn't mean being who others want you to be. It means being so authentically yourself that those who resonate with your essence can't help but recognize your value. The fifth phrase reminds us of the importance of balance. Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people. Recognizing our limits isn't a weakness, it's an act of profound wisdom. Many times, when we feel we aren't valued, it's because we've allowed others to cross our boundaries again and again. We've taught the world that it's okay to take us for granted, that we'll always be there no matter how they treat us. Jung teaches us that establishing healthy boundaries not only protects us, but also communicates to the world how we expect to be treated. People who truly value you will respect your boundaries, and those who get upset when you establish clear boundaries are revealing more about themselves than about you. I invite you to reflect. In what areas of your life do you need to establish clearer boundaries? Which relationships would benefit from a redefinition of what you're willing to accept? The sixth phrase introduces us to perhaps Jung's most famous concept. The shadow is that hidden, repressed, for the most part inferior and guilt-laden personality whose ultimate ramifications reach back into the realm of our animal ancestors. It's fascinating how we're often irritated by precisely those traits in others that we haven't accepted in ourselves. If you find yourself constantly criticizing someone for being too selfish, too ambitious, or too sensitive, it's worth asking yourself, what part of me am I rejecting in that criticism? Jung invites us to look at our intense reactions to others as mirrors reflecting non-integrated parts of ourselves. And when we integrate our shadow, when we accept both our light and our darkness, we become more complete and authentic beings. People are naturally attracted to those who have made peace with their contradictions, who don't need to project their insecurities onto others. There's something magnetic about someone who has reconciled with their own duality. The seventh phrase connects us with our inner power. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart. Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. In an era of constant external distractions, Jung reminds us of the value of introspection. Many times we seek external validation, trying to fill a void that can only be filled from within. We obsess over how others perceive us, with accumulating likes on social media, with getting approval from people who, in many cases, aren't even significantly present in our lives. True clarity, Jung tells us, comes from daring to look inward. From asking ourselves the difficult questions: who am I really? What do I value? What do I need to feel fulfilled? And when we have clarity about this, we no longer depend so much on external validation. We become our own source of value. The eighth phrase challenges us to transcend our limitations. I am not what happened to me, I am what I choose to become. Jung deeply understood the power of conscious choice. Throughout our lives, we all experience wounds, rejections, moments when we weren't valued as we deserved. And it's easy to allow these experiences to define our relationship with ourselves and the world. But Jung invites us to a more empowered perspective. We're not simply the sum of what has happened to us. We are what we choose to do with those experiences. We can allow rejection to turn us into fearful and withdrawn people, or we can use it as fuel to grow and transform. People who have transformed their wounds into wisdom have a presence that's impossible to ignore. They don't need to demand respect. They naturally inspire it. The ninth phrase deepens the importance of authenticity. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. In a world that constantly pushes us to compare ourselves, to compete, to try to outdo others, Jung reminds us of the radical value of simply being who we are. Not an improved version, not an imitation of someone more successful, but the unique and authentic expression of our essence. When you allow yourself to be authentically you, Without apologies or justifications, you emit a frequency that attracts people who are destined to value you. Not everyone will resonate with you, and that's okay. Authenticity doesn't seek universal approval, but genuine connections with those who can appreciate your true essence. I ask you, in what areas of your life have you been trying to be someone you're not to gain others' approval? How would your life be if you allowed yourself to be completely authentic? The 10th phrase invites us to recognize our own value. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. This phrase has a profound implication when considered in the context of being valued by others. Jung reminds us that while we continue seeking our validation externally, in the approving gaze of others, we'll continue living in a dream, in an illusion that can vanish at any moment. True awakening occurs when we dare to look within and discover our own intrinsic value. When we understand that we're valuable not for what we do for others, not for what we achieve or accumulate, but simply for existing, for being the unique expression of consciousness that we are. And when we awaken to this truth, we no longer beg for validation. We inspire it. People who have discovered their own value have a presence that communicates, "I know who I am, and I don't need your validation to know it." And paradoxically, this attitude naturally attracts respect and recognition. The 11th and final phrase I want to share with you is perhaps the most powerful for transforming how you're perceived by others. What you resist persists, what you accept transforms. This phrase contains a profound truth about our relationships. Often, the more we struggle for others to value us, the more resistance we encounter. The more we try to prove our worth, the more elusive its recognition seems to be. Jung suggests a beautiful paradox. To be valued, stop fighting to be valued. Accept your intrinsic worth. Make peace with who you are, with your strengths and weaknesses, with your lights and shadows. And from that place of acceptance, relate to the world. When you stop resisting what you are, when you abandon the struggle to be who you think you should be, to earn others' respect, something magical happens. The energy you previously spent in that struggle now flows freely, allowing you to show yourself to the world with an authenticity that is irresistibly magnetic. Now, these 11 phrases are powerful, but their true power lies in how you integrate them into your life. Let me share with you some practical steps inspired by Jung's work that can help you embody these truths and, as a result, fundamentally change how you're perceived and valued by others. First, commit to radical honesty with yourself. Jung believed that self-knowledge begins with the willingness to see the truth, however uncomfortable it may be. Ask yourself, in which relationships do I feel I'm not valued? Is there a pattern that repeats itself over and over? What unconscious beliefs might be feeding these patterns? Second, work on integrating your shadow. Those aspects of yourself that you've repressed or denied don't disappear. They simply become more powerful in the unconscious. Jung suggested that shadow integration begins with recognition. What aspects of yourself do you find difficult to accept? What qualities in others deeply irritate you? These irritations can be valuable clues about your own shadow. Third, establish clear boundaries in your relationships. Jung understood that healthy boundaries aren't barriers, but permeable membranes that allow nourishing exchanges while protecting our integrity. Clearly communicate what you're willing to accept and what you're not. And remember, establishing boundaries isn't an act of aggression, it's an act of self-love. Fourth, cultivate authenticity as a daily practice. Jung deeply valued authenticity as a path to individuation, the process of becoming who you truly are. Each day, look for small opportunities to be more authentic. Maybe it means expressing an opinion you would normally keep to yourself, or pursuing an interest you've postponed for fear of judgment. Fifth, recognize your own intrinsic value. Jung believed that each individual has an inherent worth that isn't conditioned on external recognition. Practice affirming yourself. I am valuable not for what I do or achieve, but simply because I exist. My value doesn't depend on others' validation. Sixth, cultivate relationships that reflect your value. Jung understood that our relationships are mirrors of our inner world. Surround yourself with people who appreciate your authenticity, who respect your boundaries, who see your value without you having to constantly prove it. And be willing to let go of relationships that consistently undermine your sense of value. 7th, practice individuation as a path to fulfillment. For Jung, individuation was the process of integrating all aspects of our being into a coherent whole. This process doesn't happen overnight, it's a lifelong journey. But each step you take toward integration brings you closer to being a complete, authentic, and magnetic person. Remember that being valued by others isn't the ultimate goal. It's simply a natural reflection of having valued yourself first. As Jung said, the acceptance of oneself is the essence of the whole moral problem and the epitome of a whole outlook on life. At the end of the day, the most beautiful paradox is this: the less you need external validation, the more naturally it will flow to you. The less you worry about being valued by others, the more genuinely you will be. Before concluding, I want to share a personal story that illustrates the transformative power of these Jungian principles. A few years ago, I found myself in a relationship where I constantly felt I had to prove my worth. I strived to be perfect, to anticipate my partner's needs, to be the ideal boyfriend I thought I needed to be loved. But the more I tried, the less valued I felt. It was as if nothing I did was ever enough. Finally, after a painful breakup, I began my own journey of self-discovery. I started reading Jung and other thinkers who helped me understand that the problem wasn't that I wasn't good enough. The problem was that I hadn't allowed myself to be authentically myself. I began to integrate my shadows, those parts of me I had repressed for fear of not being accepted. I started establishing clear boundaries in my relationships, and most importantly, I began to value myself not for what I did for others, but for who I was in essence. Something interesting happened then. The people around me began to treat me differently. I received more respect, more genuine recognition, more appreciation for my authenticity. Not because I had learned psychological tricks to manipulate others, but because I had learned Jung's most fundamental lesson. When you value yourself, the world reflects that value back to you. And you, dear viewer, deserve to experience that same transformation. You deserve relationships where your value is recognized and celebrated. You deserve to live a life that is a genuine reflection of your most authentic essence. This is your moment. Today you can begin to apply these Jungian principles in your life. You can start the journey toward greater authenticity, toward greater self-knowledge, toward a greater sense of your own intrinsic worth. And when you do, prepare to see how the world's relationship with you changes. Prepare to experience a new quality of connection, a new depth in your relationships, a new level of recognition that flows to you effortlessly. If this message has resonated with you, I invite you to reflect that in the comments. Share which Jung phrase impacted you most deeply, or what aspect of your life you plan to transform after hearing this message. And if you know someone who is struggling to be valued, share this video with them. Sometimes, all we need is a reminder of the deep truths we already know in our hearts. Remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss future videos where we'll continue exploring these profound Jungian truths and how to apply them to transform our lives. Thank you for being here, for allowing me to accompany you on this journey of self-discovery. Your presence is valued, your existence is meaningful, and your authenticity is the most valuable gift you can offer the world. Until next time. And remember, the path to being valued by others begins with valuing yourself.